good afternoon. This is Shirley with Spirit of Matter, and this is Eclipse Live. Saturn Day, Saturn Hour. Well, it's no longer Saturn Day, but actually Mercury night, where I am, with Mercury in the 6th house, conjuncting both Vertex and Mars. Okay, this is big. This is actually very big because Vertex adds fatedness to this eclipse. Vertex Mars, Vertex on the 11th degree, opposing Jupiter. Yeah, this means it's like the eclipse is fated, conjunction with Vertex is fated, a lot of fortune on the 22nd degree of To Kill and Be Killed by Nicola Stoyanovich. And the moon is just 2 degrees away from the actual eclipse window. So we are at the window of eclipses, and that means no looking at basically you would prefer to be indoors, not in a way that you're exposed to the eclipse, not in a way that you're exposed to the visuals. I know I'm holding the chart of the eclipse, but in general, we want to keep out during this window. Venus on the 18 degrees of Virgo, so we definitely have a lot going on. The eclipse window. So let's take a look at the coming eclipse again. And if you're watching this live, this is a very good time for you to close your windows, see if you can get indoors, so that you spend the next couple of hours not exposed to the eclipse. See if you can get off whatever is the news or the windows that could be open and showing this eclipse. Okay. Well, for universal time, that would be 2023. And for Israel time, we have 3 more hours to go. And that would be 3 more hours for me, where I am. Then, at the window of the eclipse, the lot of fortune is going to be in a way better. Like, it's going to conjunct Pluto, but it's not going to be in the degree of To Kill and Be Killed. Vertex is going to be moving. So this is very fated video, what I'm posting right now. I don't know why. So these 2 points are just going to buzz off, which is good. But right now, I guess I was called to, let's take a look at the current chart again, the current planets. Let's try to see, what was I called to do this video with Vertex on Mars? It's a Saturn hour with Saturn in the 9th house, in the 10th house, sorry. Mercury night with the ascendant on 21 degrees. Gemini, Mercury in the 6th house. I'm not so sure I understand why I'm called to do this episode right now. But there is something fated happening right now to do with this Mars-Jupiter opposition. This is Saturn hour. Okay, it's Mercury night, Saturn hour. Saturn in the 10th house in Pisces. is very interesting. Mind you, I will look at the news. So if there's something in the Middle East, you're gonna get update. We are updated. So a couple of things that happened today were basically the bomb dropped on a Bedouin village in Israel, and it was declared as open field. So RRI in the Negev, and it was declared as open field. It was a very big fiasco. And some soldiers killed a person in the Shomron area, Palestinian person in the Shomron area, which is likely to cause trouble. I don't know. Hamas is said to use Starlink terror activity. Oh, basically, Elon Musk said he would connect the UN and the organizations supposedly help Gaza to the internet through Starlinks, and Hamas will be using that for terror. And Hamas is Daesh. So again, there's this internet thingy, which is the 11th degree of Nikola Stoyanovich, happening a couple of minutes ago. Here's the update. So, talking about the kidnapped people. Oh my God, a 9-year-old from Ashdod city died after she had a heart attack during the siren a week ago. So it's just the heart attack during the siren. Who knows how many people that was a 9-year-old girl. That happens in Israel. Here we are updated to what happens in Israel. Hardly updated what happens in Palestine or Gaza. So people demonstrating. Demonstrating against Bibi Netanyahu. So that's ongoing. Okay. So I don't understand what's on. But I'm trying to see what was that fated thing to do with Mars that I saw, basically. Because Vertex right now is on the 11th degree. Venus on the 18th degree. Venus is applying to trine Uranus. Just saying at this time. And we are just heading for this eclipse. So eclipse time. Well, while we had the time of the moon ingress into Taurus, from 0 degrees Taurus, it was a good time to let go of the void of course moon, and the moon was still growing because it's a full moon eclipse. And that, as funny as it is to say full moon eclipse, it's like dissonance, but yeah. But as the moon was beginning to oppose the sun while not eclipsing, that was a good time to release some stuff, to find out certain truths, or to speak the truth, to expose the truth, and a great time to kind of see a preview of what's on. Let's invite in some. Look at the. I don't know if I can look at the asteroids right now. No, I can't. Why is this horrid chart? Just checking some stuff. So Saturn is very mitigating for this eclipse. And there's a bit of a mystic rectangle with Lilith. It's funny because when I think about Saturn on a mundane level mitigating this eclipse, I'm thinking about being aware of the WHO and WEF and Schwabland and everything that's going and how the hoax of medicine is playing to evacuate people from their houses, to understand that we are Maui, and how that mitigates the kind of supposed religious or belief military based conflict that's going with Israel and Palestine. And perhaps it's fated for me to talk about this because um, it's kind of like, they're doing a genocide. They're doing who's doing the genocide, and I'm like, well, let's take a look at the WHO. Let's take a look at the WEF. Let's take a look at the global um, tendency to evacuate people from their homes with all kinds of supposed natural disasters happening and wars, and let's see what's actually going on. And Saturn here in 0 degree Pisces is very mitigating. Okay, it's kind of like, let's look at what's actually happening in the world. Again, Pisces is about faraway lines, but also about the whole world. It's kind of like where there are no boundaries. And look how it mitigates the triggering of the opposition of Mercury, Mars, Vertex, and Jupiter. It's kind of like this is not a regional conflict. This is not an Israel Palestine conflict. This is Schwabland. And while there is a conflict between Israel and Palestine, um, actually acknowledging the core of the issue that needs to be addressed, that is the entire gaslighting of marketing poisoning as either pandemics or medicines or both, marketing security, and it's like we are beginning to understand what's actually going on, or the hidden structure. Saturn plays hidden structure of the entire thing, and that takes the focus off the conflict. It does exist, but it's like actually acknowledging the core of the problem mitigates the conflicting, pivotal, um, religious wars and all of the above. Um, but understanding that these journalists they are broadcasting the Israeli-Palestinian conflict are not tending to Schwabland, and that unfortunately in this situation puts them in a very, very lethal situation for choosing a battle that is outdated. Okay. And so the journalism that we really need to see is covering completely other things at this point, and that stands counter to Jupiter right now. Is counter to certain philosophy of land, of territory. There's another applied knowledge that exists in here, and perhaps the journalists see when they are in Gaza and are being bombed supposedly by the IDF, then they might, by being in the place, um, and seeing what happens to the supposed aid, what is the medicine that's offered or not offered, maybe through that they begin to see that that where they are is not what they came here to broadcast, is not the news. The Israeli-Palestine conflict is not the news. The Hamas or Israel genocide is not even the news. Okay, Schwabland genocide, multiple genocide by proxy, and evacuating people from their homes worldwide. That's more the news. And I think right now, at this very moment, these journalists that are in Gaza are beginning to understand that they're in Maui, um, not in Palestine or Israel. Okay, and and it's not that Israel doesn't bomb Gaza, but they began to understand that the original oppressive authority here is Schwabland in Israel. Israel is the by proxy. It's kind of like when you talk to the commander of all the armed forces versus the commander of the legion that throws a bomb towards the city that you're broadcasting from, and that's what every person with a camera now sees. Okay, with this mitigation of Saturn, it's a very wide orb. Okay, there's a separating aspect, but because Saturn here is trying the Sun and sextiling the Moon still, we get that the eclipse points are going to be very much mitigated by this Saturn, and by tending to the structure of what we call the medical field, and the hidden structures that govern liquidity. Okay, because Neptune, if we had to put Neptune in finances, that would govern liquidity. Okay, liquid assets, um, and transactions that are done under the radar. Okay, it's kind of like people say organized crime. There's nothing organized about Neptune. It's something that's very under the radar and very, very vague. And it can be the person that is going undercover because they spoke the truth versus the person that is going undercover because they hide the truth. So both of them are Neptune. Okay, Neptune is the spy in favor of humanity as well as the spy against humanity. If I think about Elon Musk connecting Gaza to the internet with Starlink, and Israel's kind of protesting that, it's like, oh, Hamas is going to be using that. Well, your surveillance is everywhere. So Hamas doesn't need Starlink to hack into um, any of the satellites that are in the sky consistently. You don't need Starlink for that. You don't need internet connection for that. You need to be able to hack these places. You can do it with a generator, and you can do it with waves and frequency. Internet is wave and frequency. Okay, if you get on the wave and frequency, you're on the internet. Okay, if you don't need an external, yeah, it's just how the internet works. It's a wave that is being transmitted. So if you create interaction with that wave by something wavy, then it doesn't matter if somebody cuts you off the internet, you're just connecting to the internet. If you think people can't do that, you're wrong. Okay? So Hamas does not need Starlink to connect on the wave, to get on the wavelength. But the people who don't have these technologies to do that or didn't develop it, intend to it, they do need, and Elon Musk provides. This is also in favor of the journalists that are broadcasting. So there's a very fated moments to do it at 11th degree. There's a conflict over basically internet broadcast. And I just exposed something that's very reasonable. Okay, if you just know It's not intelligence in the sense of receiving secret information because I don't have it, but I'm just like, well, what is internet? How does it work? Well, internet is a wavelength that's being translated to electricity and to, in the past it was zeros and ones, and to these zeros and ones portraying letters and portraying, all kinds of stuff and sending signals. It's very intricate, but that's the internet. Like, you really don't need to have a modem or 5G or 6G or 7G to get connected to that wave if you can get on that wave. Okay, and you just need the frequency of the internet, which, if you have something that can tell you the frequencies of sound in your area, or the frequencies of waves in your area, you could probably hack one of these by translating. If you think about this technology that translates the sounds of leaves, okay, the leaves, the frequency of leaves into sound. Okay, it's the same thing. If you got something that catches the frequencies and translates that into internet waves, then you can create a hacked. Further, you can send signals to interfere with that without even being connected to the internet. You don't have to hack by social engineering and so on and so forth. If you have something that um, gets the technology that can identify the sound waves, then you can basically send signals of interference, and basically send noise. Okay, it's just eclipse basically manifesting noise. Um, and that's another thing that could be happening right now. We're trying to cut maybe other places from internet. And if you send noise to that, then basically you're interfering with the internet. Okay, that does not require you to be online. If you understand what the technology is made of, to interfere in it does not require you to be online. Okay. On the other hand, if you understand what waves and frequencies are good for your well-being, you can amplify those and counteract those interference. The interference is, and that's shielding. Okay, it's energy. Waves, frequencies, and energies. So I gave you a little bit of a teaching here that perhaps was fated, and perhaps was the point of this episode. It was very interesting. I did not expect this. And I guess the attempt to not have journalists broadcasting from Gaza is being intercepted by Elon Musk, with the excuse that Hamas is going to use that to their benefit. Well, silencing people is just not legit. It doesn't work. I'm not talking about Israel here. I'm talking about Schwabland. Okay, I'm talking about the actual thing. It's not the IDF. It's not Israel. Israel's been sold, like many other countries, to Agenda 2030. So there is no legal entity that's called not just Israel, but any country. And that's something we're dealing with right now. It's not something new, but it's something we're dealing with right now, as people are being evacuated from their homes, as Gaza is bombed, but people are kidnapped within Gaza. Okay, it doesn't make any strategic sense. And withdrawing areas, a lot of people begin to think about it, and they're like, well, what's the strategy? It's just like the common person begins to understand where strategy is. Kind of like, there's nothing strategic about bombing the place where kidnapped people may be. And it's not like we don't know to do way more precision attacks. Well, we need to, but we don't have the technology to locate where these kidnapped people are and release them. Intercept. It's like, we have technologies, and we talk about lasers, we talk about being able to see and perceive through bunkers and literally kill the person. If there's like a person holding in their hands a kidnapped child, okay, you can literally point at the person's head and finish them off, leaving the child alive. Okay, so why don't we do that? We're talking about Israel. I'm not talking about Israel because there is no entity right now that is Israel. Okay, we're seeing what if you know the term abuse by proxy? We're seeing it on a mundane level. Here we're seeing abuse by proxy, and what we can point out is Agenda 2030 and evacuation of people from their homes. But on a societal level, well, just believing that the supposed junkie on the street is a person who made bad choices with his life or their lives, is basically contributing to the problem. This is a fertile soil to Schwabland overthink. If you believe that the townsfolk is hallucinating, then you get no enlightenment, and so it's very easy to oppress you. Okay? If you believe that crazy people are crazy people and they see reality wrong or they're psychotic, instead of understanding that they need to be in better surroundings, and that's pertain, if you're running into this, probably pertains to you as well, then you're missing the signs of enlightenment and as fertile soil to evacuate you from your home. Because if you're believing that people who are homeless actually just people who made bad choices in their lives, this is fertile soil to legitimize evacuating you from your house. Okay? Because you're going to believe, you're going to try to think, what did I do? What choice did I make in my life that was wrong, that this happens to me? Instead of concentrating on the problem, somebody thinks they have the right to tell you where to live. Okay? So this is how Saturn here mitigates the issue, and Lilith in Virgo as well, kind of reminding us that, connecting to our gut sensitive or sexuality is way more healing than those hidden structures that are marketed as medications. That there isn't medications, that it doesn't cross the threshold of corruption. Because there are medications that can reverse terminally ill cancer patient into full remission. Okay, they did not cross the threshold of corruption because they're not corrupted, they're not marketed, and people continue to die of cancer and being treated with chemotherapy, which is basically torture, rather than having full remission, changing having nutritious food. Okay, the water, we're told to have, like food and water. And everybody was buying water. It was going crazy, and I tried to find mineral bottles of water without fluoride, and I haven't found any. Okay. And then somebody in the astrology group in Israel asked, I want only professional astrologers to answer me. Do you think they're going to poison the water in the next month? I didn't reply to them, but I was like, first of all, when there is a war, like war is stupid, and all kinds of stupid can have this. The most stupidity of all happened. Okay, besiegement, ritual abuse, rape, torture, and murder of all people, including babies and elders and women and men and pregnant women. That the utmost stupidity already happened. So what's polluting the water? Okay, like they did the most stupid thing, the most expensive thing you can do in a war. If you read The Art of War, the first thing they talk about is that the most expensive war act that's going to cost you the morale of the soldiers is besieging cities. Okay, they didn't even talk about war crimes. They just talk about actual war strategies, besieging cities. Because besieging a city is very expensive. Your troops are going to get demoralized very quickly. You're going to get a lot of losses. Okay? The most stupid thing was done on the get-go on the 7th of October in Israel. Okay, I'm not even talking about Gaza Strip. Like, just Israel became a little bit of a Maui, and they were besieging cities. That's what happened. Okay, it was not just guerrilla war. It was besieging of cities. Okay, and ritualistic abuse and murder. Like, it's like, that's the most stupid thing ever. And the biggest stupidity is like, it's already happened. So of course polluting the water is stupid, but also keeping water for people is stupid, and that's already been happening even outside of the war. And not only by Israel. Okay, you gotta understand that Israel did not invent any of its war tactics. Neither did Hamas or ISIS. Um, so, but the other answer to this question is like, if there is 0.22 milligrams of fluoride in your drinking water, and it's called mineral water, and you're told to drink a lot of water, even though what hydrates you is more than water. Okay, some like coconut water, some like water with minerals, that are like, you need more than water to hydrate, and that's important. Okay, hydration is not just water. But you're being marketed, you're being told, you need at least 8 liters of this liquid. It contains fluoride. You have it in your food, you have it in your toothpaste. You really can't get rid of it. Then we are already being poisoned daily, globally. It's a different dosage, but this is already happening. And then when it begins to create ailment, then the methods of healing, they're torture. They tell you that you have to talk about your trauma somewhere, to heal from a trauma. Okay? Try to force you to talk about a trauma to heal from a trauma. Okay. It's not necessarily true. But we're definitely, or that you have to relive, re-experience, kind of like relieve the emotions of the trauma to let them go. Those shamans tell us it's not necessarily true. You change the circumstances. That's very true. Okay? At every juncture of the medical field, where it's recovering, where it's reducing the nausea that you get around the torture therapy called chemo. Well, I said there are medicines that cause full remission in terminally ill cancer patients. They're just not being marketed. Um, so they put you through some torture, and then they give you beta blockers. Beta blockers, what they cause the autonomic muscles to not contract. Autonomic muscles are in your intestines, so you can't poop, or it's just food. And then you're hungry. Actually, you're hungry because you're not absorbing nutrients. Okay, that causes malfunction of your liver. Okay, and another two autonomic muscles, of course, your brain, which is why it's said to reduce psychotic seizures. It does not even increase that, because it deprives your brain from food, of what it needs. And another famous autonomic muscle is the heart. And guess what? Beta blockers are given to people after a heart attack. So at every juncture of the medicine, from the main medical issues, you're going to get a beta blocker, and then you're going to get diabetes. You're not absorbing nutrients, so you become starving. What do you do when a person is starving and drying up? When you give them sugar, and so you're craving sugar and fat that you can't really digest properly in your brain. It runs on sugar, so it doesn't matter if you change your nutrition, if you don't absorb anything, you can eat keto and intermittent fasting, I don't know, be a monk on a mountain. But if you're given chemistry that does not allow you to absorb nutrients, you're just dying. And you're being told that if you stop taking it, things are going to get way worse. You're going to need way more pills. Okay, that's not medicine. That's abuse. That's psychological war. It's not medicine. There's nothing medical about this. Okay. I'm not going to begin to talk about Pfizer, what these shots do. And people actually begin to segregate from each other on the basis of, are you vaccinated? Okay, mask is one thing. You say, well, you want, but although the logic behind masks is very problematic, masking is one thing, okay, but to segregate people on the grounds of, did you take that shot that they said to take? But that shot could be lethal, but it was. To many people, it was. Okay. Interfere with your fertility cycles. If you're not menstruating, you wouldn't know. But your sperm count probably is not what it was. But because we were poisoned by our food, by the air system, the fake clouds, and so on and so forth, then it's like, how do you know that that's the pill? How do you know that that's the shot? It's very true. We are poisoned so much that when this thing comes, it's kind of like the cherry on top of the gaslighting of medicine. And if you talk about it, it's like, oh, you're anti-science, you're anti-this, you're no, I'm pro-medicine. I believe in science. And it is through science that I understand what this thing does. And although it does move. So when we tend to that, we understand we have a crisis, we have a situation where we are kind of seduced to believe in conflicting ideas, conflicting religions, conflicting this, conflicting that, and segregate based on that. Just like in COVID, we had people have each other segregated based on, are you vaccinated? And even believe that people do not deserve to have their life saved in medicine if they did not vaccinate themselves. Okay, it really got all that silly. This is the stupidity of people. This is the stupidity of people. It's not victim blaming. It's understanding that is stupid. Okay, you're not to blame when somebody oppresses you, when somebody puts you in a concentration camp, when somebody puts poison in you, so something like that. Somebody makes you believe because your family doctor that you go to for 10 or 20 years believes that this is true, and they urge you to do that. You're not to blame for that. That being said, it's also important to wake up from the stupidity that we have been partaken through no fault of our own, and change that and tend to that. It's like, hey, now we were exposed to that. Now at least we need to know better. So Saturn here really calls our attention to settle this opposition by understanding that there are other things at play here. What about women's rights? Okay, Lilith here is very practical. How are women doing? How is LGBTQ community in Palestine? Well, since the reign of Hamas, women cannot complain about violence from their husbands, a lot of oppression towards women. And I just needed to see an Israeli person, Thessaloniki, traveling in Jenin, in Nablus, in Hawara, in the West Bank, being very welcomed by the locals, but I did not see pride flags. I did not see women. Did not see Palestinian women. No pride flags, no Palestinian women. No gays. And this is just a look. Okay, if there were any, he would interview. This is a person who went to the refugee camp in Jenin and got in. Okay, if there were gays in Palestine that could expose themselves and felt safe to do so in Palestine, and women in Palestine, he would get to them. Okay, he would not hide that from the crowd, because you just need to look at this channel, Tesluki. Look at my posts where I gave credit to him. Then here on YouTube, just look at my posts on the under community, and you'll see it. So you understand that, Lilith mitigates it by, wait, can we compare Palestine to Rojava? Absolutely no, we can't. So while we're all pro human rights for the Palestinians, unless we are, under some tremendous trauma and grief, or in Israel, or, whatever utterly inclined, but it's like we're all pro rights for the Palestinians, but we're not holding a grand hope for Palestine. And then when people were asked if they prefer Hamas, then a lot of people did prefer Hamas, but the majority, more so than Hamas, was Fatah, okay, the PLO. And Fatah, mind you, made the two intifadas, where it sent suicide bombers to the hearts of the cities, whereas Tel Aviv, whereas Ramat Gan, whereas Hadera, Beersheba, Jerusalem, and bombed people in public transportation. Okay, so who travels in public transportation? People who really can't afford to get another passport and travel away from Israel, and vote by feet that they don't want to be participating in a certain policy. Although the Second Intifada happened, after the attempts of Yitzhak Rabin to basically settle some sort of autonomy to Palestinian people. So, as you can see, the PLO was not really pro-Palestine. It's not like I remember pride parades happening in Ramallah. Okay, they were happening in Tel Aviv. So we could absolutely not compare Palestine to Rojava, not under Hamas, but also not under the Fatah. So the Fatah, to me, when I look at people saying, oh, we like the Fatah, literally what I'm hearing is the Jews being released from Egypt, crying about the pots of meat that they are missing in Egypt, and they were actually slaves that were starving. So it's not like Palestinians were happy under the PLO. They're definitely not happy under Hamas. It's definitely not a place to be a Palestinian woman, a Palestinian gay. And it cannot be compared with Rojava. Okay? It can absolutely not be compared with Rojava unless we see a legion of LGBTQ and legion of women kind of taking ISIS down, and so on and so forth, which is not impossible. Okay, the Uranus on the 22nd degree in April will feature Lilith on the 22nd degree, and Aries probably pretty much the same. So if you think about Rojava, we can have another Rojava in April 2024. Okay, and that's something to keep in mind. Like we're probably going to have in my legion of very Lilith women slaughtering the slaughterers, okay, slaughtering rapists, slaughtering kidnappers, slaughtering It's going to be a legion of women doing that. It's going to be Palestinian women, or it's going to be Israeli women that had had enough, that like we don't know, or if it's always going to be both. But right now, there is no comparison between Palestine and Rojava. I'm sorry, also not Israel and Rojava. Okay, we're not decentralized. There are rapists in Israel all over. of Israeli women. So let alone, you know, so we're not, like, yeah, we have some gay parades, but it's still not safe to be gay in Jerusalem. It's still not safe to be gay in many places. There's still trans society killing themselves by the dozens every day. So we can't even compare Israel to Rojava, let alone Palestine. And that is something that like looking at it from a Lilith point of view is also mitigating. It's like we talk about Israel, Palestine, Palestine, Israel, we're like, we're thinking Rojava. Okay? And from the Saturn point of view, it's like, well, this is Schwabland pushing the cars and kind of pulling the strings. That, well, if that would happen in a work environment, we would say that this is an abuse by proxy. Okay, some what we would call narcissistic person, which is an outdated definition, is basically using other people in lower rank to diversify and conquer, so that he will win like the entire plate. But then again, what makes a certain environment a fertile soil to that is the naivete of this is actually a religious conflict. This is actually oh, this person is so well spoken, is so educated, is so smart. He probably speaks the truth, or she probably speaks the truth. Okay. I saw a short, by the way, with Amber Hart today. Actually, the first time I seen her with makeup, like I'm not a Hollywood person, so I don't know a lot of people. And there was like, she really looks like a very beautiful woman, a very attractive woman. But we all know, but eventually, telling to a person nobody will believe you is not something that usually just like, yeah, that's basically what every victim of what people call narcissistic abuse or repression. It's kind of like that they don't know what's energy um, of domestic relations. And to think about the dissonance between how she looks, her sense of attractiveness, her frail character. She looks like this very skinny woman, just not too like big in size, that has this even tenderness to it, a little bit of mischief, but not mischief that you would think is actually oppressive. Okay, and then like, hey, looks can fool, okay, looks can deceive, and that's the naivete, especially when she came out. I think it was around the era of the Me Too, so you tend to believe that, hey, that's what's on. Fortunately, we had a recording that Amber said, no one will believe you, and at this point, all Me Too veterans, all people who actually went through a Me Too case, were with Johnny Depp. And I literally said, I'm very happy that it happened a couple of years later, because that would have really been way too overwhelming for me during the Me Too. But then before the Me Too, nobody would give a flying fuck about Johnny Depp. They would say, well, you're a whining ass baby, talking about this girl that hurt you. And nobody would believe that Amber Hart has gone through anything. You say, oh, she's probably for stinking a whore, blah blah blah, trying to get money out of him, because that was the convention. It is only after the Me Too that we get to look deeper into this and see that Johnny Depp has a point and he's not to be blamed for what he's been through, and that with all these cases that happen to women, somebody tells you they're not going to believe you. Speaking about they're not going to believe you that I abuse you, that means Johnny Depp is the Me Too veteran here. So that is another thing that I kind of ran into today. And this is just one of the cases where the naivete of us as people is being bombarded with looks can deceive, speech can deceive, and also what you think is the conflict can deceive. Okay, and so it's kind of like Mandelbrot fractal, okay, the Mandelbrot fractal, because you think it is of like, oh, Israel is doing a genocide, and of course, if you lost 2,500 people in horrid ways, you gotta respond, okay? When that translates to almost 8,000 civilians dead by now in Gaza, it's like even if you would if you would divide by 3 the numbers, that's still ethnic cleansing. Okay, that's still a war crime. It's nothing. It's nothing we can do about this. It's just so. Who's to blame? Who's to this? Who's to that? The result is like 3,000. Let's say it was 3,000 civilians dead. Here's like 200, 2,500 civilians dead. That is a genocide. So now it's very difficult to gain attention for the genocide that happened in the 7th of October to Israeli citizens when there are triple times the deaths in Gaza, with Israel just keeping declaring, we're bombing Gaza, we're getting worse, we're getting this, we're getting that, and journalists not being able to broadcast. So it's very difficult to get attention to the genocide that happened at your house when that's the response. But this is just only a fractal, because what we also don't see is that there is no entity such as Israel anymore. And so who is performing both of these genocides? Well, something to do with the who and the with. It's coming from a person who was born in Switzerland. He's not Jewish. He's not Muslim. He's not Palestinian. He's not Ukrainian. He's not Russian. Okay? And certain occult ritualistic type of bloodshed, kind of, instead of like putting hibiscus on an altar, the most horrid of things, putting hibiscus on an altar gets the same results better, because it's used instead of blood rituals. By the way, this is a blood moon, so it's a good time to call on the energy of hibiscus, and ask to replace bloodshed and blood sacrifice with bloodshed of war, yes, not menstruation, in hibiscus growth. And this note for wonders that there's Jupiter hour already, and we're nearing the moon on the 4th degree of Taurus, getting closer. And a lot of fortune has moved from the fated place where it was. His sun is now in Cancer, ruled by this moon. And the moon is in Taurus, it's exalted. It's about to enter the eclipse window. So we talked about how both Lilith and Saturn are mitigation for this eclipse. Lilith from the sensual, sexual side. It's like, hey, rape and torture of children, women, and men, and pregnant women, and elderly is not liberation of the motherland. Oppressing women so that they can't complain about domestic violence because of the Hamas regime is not representing the Palestinian people. You can't really, and neither is the PLO. You can't really claim that you're Rojava when that happens. Neither can Israel. While Saturn is kind of looking at, the Schwabland, who is actually performing the genocides by proxy, and instead of pointing fire at each other, it's like we can and we should tend to those secret societies that have these blood rituals instead of like putting hibiscus on an altar. It's not that they don't know. Okay, you can do that with hibiscus. And the depopulation and the entire Agenda 2030 that's using these conflicts to masquerade what's going on, which was in between these two eclipses, the transferring of rights to the WHO in a way that literally negates the existence of states. So as this month, we're basically having a world that has no political entities but the whole. Okay, that includes China. No more. So anything that's being discussed as political conflict between nations is basically a puppet show in a very real way, a very incarnated way. Okay, so we have no China, we have no Russia, we have no Ukraine, we have no Israel, we have no Palestine. Currently, we're not over Java either. Or no United States. Okay, if say United States, they want to conquer Israel for yeah, there's one fragment, one fractal of the truth. But if you look at the Mandelbrot beetle, what is the if you zoom out of these fractals, where's the Mandelbrot beetle? It's Agenda 2030. And at all the little conflicts you see are like fractals of pretty much the same, which is ritual abuse, evacuating people from their lands, creating havoc and chaos, playing pretense, abuse by proxy. And I think my cat is so very tired with me. You're so patient. How did you manage to sleep in all that? So I'll let go. And I hope this was helpful for anybody who was passing the time. Stay away from the baleful rays, as they say, or the lack of baleful rays for this eclipse. Yeah, and you have hello from Segment. So, à tout à l'heure.